since America with Eden Cornell. Yeah.
And good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Friday. It is December the 2nd, and it is freezing cold here in Eastern North Carolina. I tell you what, I am fired up this morning. I have my big girl pants on this morning. I'm going to tell you that right now. I tell you what, so many things are affecting our world, and we have a lot to really talk about. Let's be real with each other this morning here at Common Sense America. Common Sense America was founded on truth. It was founded on talking about our kitchen table discussions and what is really affecting our society. And you know what is affecting our society? The fact that I'm talking to me, not just to you. When do we not put on our big girl pants and our big boy pants? There are so many things that are affecting our nation and our next generation of kids. And I am so furious. I'm disgusted. I am sickened by what is happening to our children that are going into sex slavery, human trafficking. Members of Congress know this is happening around the nation. Are they doing anything about it? I don't know. I'll tell you one thing, though. All the newly elected Republicans care more about pork barrel and money in their back pockets. I have a huge issue with where our nation is going, especially as we are protecting the next generation of leaders. Is it because of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Have we lost all focus? Yeah, we have. We have lost focus on what this nation is about. Right now, we see little girls and little boys with teddy bears that have chains around them, people. Yes. I'm not here to scream. I will rant because I care, because I love this nation, and because I love our kids. But I'm not going to scream. I'm very passionate, and I care about what's ahead for your kids, for the kids I mentor, for my God kids. But I'm not going to scream. But I am an adult here. I have put on my big girl pants, and I expect you to do the same as we tackle a very, very disgusting issue: human trafficking of our children. It is happening in our nation's backyard. It's happening in your backyard, whether you want to believe it or not. TikTok? Do you have TikTok on your kids' phones? Because if you do, get it off. It's China. It's China collecting our data, and it's destroying our children's minds. We talk about mental health here at Common Sense America. We talk about teen suicides. We talk about the real issues that are facing our hearts, our souls, our families, our communities. And it's not necessarily just the value of the dollar and putting dollar in back in our bank accounts, thanks to the Biden administration. But it is the very heart and soul of the human existence. The diversity, equity, inclusion piece, the CRT piece, the very root of these indoctrinations are destroying the very fabric of our families. This morning, I posted on my Facebook account, and I shared on all the social accounts, that we were bringing over to the show at 9:30 this morning Brian Searcy. He's retired United States Air Force colonel, and he was on the show once before. We talked a lot about situational awareness for you, for me. I travel a lot, and I talked about that with him on our first interview. I travel a lot, I drive a lot, I fly, I take the train. And we're living in a world where people are out to seek, destroy, and kill. That's the reality of the world that we live in. I'm not trying to be rosy. I know a lot of the time we do rose-colored glasses here, but I also bring the truth to you guys. And I know it's a Friday, and I know it's December the 2nd, and I know we are getting ready for Christmas. And this whole week, we have been focusing on giving back. This is my way of giving back to each and every one of you. Protecting your children, protecting your grandchildren, protecting you from human trafficking crimes, from sex slavery crimes, from filling this with corruption. Our mainstream media, their narratives are so screwed up, and I'm calling them out as I see it. I'm sick of the mainstream media and their lack of content, lack of journalism. Yes, they're disgusting. Fed up with it. Why can't we have some truth back in our public square? And instead, it's covered, it's censored, and it's removed. This book, Real World, I want you guys to go pick up a copy. Brian Searcy wrote this. It's about situational awareness. It's about when you're going to the gas station and your surroundings may not be as secure as you would hope. You're not necessarily in your home surroundings and you feel so secure. You take the gas pump and you use it as a weapon because people are out to take whatever they can at this point. People don't work anymore. They're just out to steal what you have worked so hard for, thanks to the Biden administration. So you use the gas tank as a weapon. The gas hose, use it as a weapon if you were by yourself. Another thing that we have learned from Brian Searcy is this, and I've heard him talk on other podcasts. And as you guys know, here at Common Sense America, I bring truth here every day because so many of us are told such lies from mainstream media. Dear God in heaven, I hope you guys don't watch ABC News. Yes, I used to work with them, and I get their emails to see how distorted the truth has become. But here at Common Sense America, ever since I ran for elected office, and I will continue to fight, I uncovered so many lies. So many lies. And I saw so many lies happening right in front of me. What better way than to expose the truth than in front of this microphone by talking to each and every one of you? On a lighter note, I want to first say this before we go into our only segment for today. Yes, my rant has been very potent this morning. My heart is heavy, but I'm grateful, and here's why. I looked at the back end of my analytics on all my social channels, from YouTube to Rumble to Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter. I'll tell you what, women out there who watch the show, who are supporting the show, whether you tell me privately or post something on social media, the women have spoken. My highest viewers are women to date. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for tuning in to hear truth, to talk about our kitchen table discussions, to talk about making a bigger impact at our kitchen table. Thank you. Another thing, and just so you know, if I'm looking right or left, you do not have a full view of my news desk. I have notes right here. I'm not distracted. And if I'm talking to anybody who's on the show and I'm looking to my right or left, I'm looking at my notes because I seek to educate myself on the guest and to educate you, the viewer. The other back-end analytics shared with me that I talked about from New York to North Carolina yesterday. And it was exposed yesterday or this morning when I was looking at my analytics. New York City is number one and watching the show. And next is North Carolina. In between is Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, and Florida. So, to all of my viewers out there, whether you watch after the show, whether you watch in the evening, whether you are sitting down to have dinner with your spouse or your kids, or you're just checking in on what's happening in the world, and you happen to turn on Common Sense America with me, thank you. Thank you for supporting the show. We are headed into our 4th month, and we have so many new guests coming to our show for this month. I also wanted to let you know this show has been a podcast. It started out as a radio, live stream radio. Unfortunately, things changed with that radio live streaming. And I've continued forth and doing a podcast because I love you guys and I love talking about the important issues. And I also love our country. But I will also tell you, I am shopping for a new network. And I'm hoping that come the new year, Common Sense America with Eden Hill will be on a network where you can tune in at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for an hour to hear top-rated guests who are recognized around this nation and internationally, that you will tune in to hear about the topics that face our hearts, our livelihoods, our hope and our future, our next generation, our nation, our military, and our veterans. We have so many amazing things in this nation, but the left continues to suppress it. So what are you going to do? What am I going to do? I'll tell you what, this chair I sit in every morning to come and talk to you is very uncomfortable. So let me tell you this. I don't sit here for very long. I'm very active with my media business. I'm very active in the community, and I'm very active with other organizations around the world and around the nation, as you have seen in this past couple months of bringing common sense to you guys. Next week, to give you a quick rundown for all of those out there who love young voices, we will be having Gabriella Hoffman kick off next week with some kitchen table discussions that focus heavily on being consultants. So many of us, ever since COVID, went down the consultant path. And now the current presidential administration is putting an even tighter clamp on our freedoms to be independent business leaders and freelancers. Gabriella is going to be talking about that top of the show on Monday. She's also a fisherwoman and a hunter and an expert on so many different states. We're going to be talking about fishing because living here in the great state of North Carolina, fishing is a big deal. Commercial and recreational fishing are huge. And my husband, who has been fishing here since he was born, has seen a lot of bad changes happen here in the state because of the empty suit. He's in Raleigh, along with the Republicans and Democrats who are in the state house and the state Senate, passing around, their candy, talking shop, but don't do anything for the state. Yeah, I'm calling you out. And hey, those newly elected officials heading into the state house and state Senate, I'm watching you. It's not a threat. But the things that you didn't run on spoke volumes to all of us. So we want to see how much you actually get done. You're going to just follow along with the empty suit, follow along with what the feds are doing? Probably. I'd like to see some work done. That's probably why I didn't get elected, because I don't let big money, big media, big tech own me. I speak for myself. I speak with the mind that God's given me, the common sense that he's given me. You have to excuse me. My allergies are killing me with this weather, but that's okay. I'm human. Some other things to consider. As we are headed into the Christmas season, I bring you tidings of great joy. We talk a lot about local, we talk a lot about federal. But something I want you guys to keep in mind, I want to educate you and I want you to educate yourselves. We are headed into a new Congress. January 2023. It is literally right there. Christmas is already come and gone. We may be getting ready for Christmas, celebrating the Christmas season, doing all the Christmas festivities, decorating the tree, wrapping the presents, going shopping, doing family meals, doing holiday choirs, going and supporting local causes like we are doing here in Megan's Bay this weekend. But I want you to be aware and to know what is going to be coming down the pike with the new Congress. Republican majority, but does that mean anything's going to get done? I know Young Voices is going to speak to that next week. So that's something more we're going to be discussing. But until then, I want you to educate yourself on the newly elected officials who are in Congress. I want you to educate yourself on your local officials, your state officials, and those who are newly elected, Senate, House, you name it. Because when you wake up the next morning and your rights continue to be taken away, you're going to start to question what's happening in and around you. I know a lot of us here at Common Sense America are focused on just putting food on the table and gas in our tanks. I'm right there with you. But if we don't educate ourselves on the censorship, on the lack of traditional and biblical marriage, on babies who are being aborted, when moms, teenagers, kids come to North Carolina because it's a destination state to kill your child, we got a problem. So please educate yourself because we're going to be hitting hard those social issues, those faith issues, those economic issues, and those homeland security, national security, military security issues, and those veteran issues. We're going to have a lot. Next week, we also will be focusing on special operations organization that focuses on giving back to our military and our veterans. We're also going to be focusing on the Army-Navy game, which will be happening, the 10th. And we're also going to be focusing on the Ukraine, the war in the Ukraine, what America is doing, the families, what's happening in Poland, all the international issues. That's what's going to be happening next week. But let me just engage you for a few minutes of a couple events that I would like you to consider supporting or participating in or donating or just making a call or an online donation. 2 events. Here we go. Get ready. Save the date. Tomorrow, which is Saturday, December the 3rd, local, and these are for local events, and then I'll do national. Local events, Lights of Love here, Megan's Bay, tomorrow. Rain rescheduled. If it is, I have not heard. I believe it's still current and ongoing for tomorrow from 6 to 9 p.m. Megan's Bay, all to benefit the hospice house here in this local area. Over the years, $10,000 in one night has gone to the local hospice house. I'm grateful and thankful for the families at Croatan High School who continue to support the local hospice house. I'm grateful to all the moms in the Megan's Bay neighborhood who are putting together this event. I'm grateful to the community in Megan's Bay who have decorated their beautiful homes and are coming together to celebrate. So tomorrow night, December 3rd, from 6 to 9 p.m., join us here at Megan's Bay for Lights of Love. something you don't want to miss. It's a very special night. Also, I have the honor of working with Salt and Light Academy, decorating their event, but also supporting the kids in this homeschooling learning pod put on and designed by Marcy Friesner, who is the director. We are putting on a Christmas spectacular at Salt and Light Academy, Friday, December the 16th at 6:15. How can you forget that? December 16th, 6:15. Easy. Come over to 686 Corbett Avenue. And I tell you what, we're going to have a choir. We're going to have photos with Santa. And Marcy Friesner, who is going to be signing her book called His Child, a 40-day devotional. You do not want to miss this event. But by chance, if you cannot make it, drop a line to Salt and Light Academy. Drop a line to Marcy. Encourage her with her work for those amazing students that she supports daily. She is a speaker, an author, a teacher, an educator, a pastor, and she was a safe house mom for human trafficking victims. So if you haven't noticed yet, there's a theme here. There's a theme of combating human trafficking, whether it's local, national, or international. And the other theme is support your local organizations. Another theme is don't isolate yourself this holiday season. Mental health is at the highest right now. Get out of your comfort zone. Get off your couches. Get out and talk to people. Whether you like them or not, go talk. Go for a mental health walk. Engage people around you. Talk to that stranger. Show some kindness. And don't just do it because it's the Christmas season. Do it because God has you here for a purpose. He has you here to love. He's called you for such a time as this to give back. Give back. Love on somebody. Hug a child. Hugging a child is not wrong. Hugging a child is showing love. And a lot of kids don't feel that anymore. A lot of kids are just so lost in this not so smartphone world. It may be called a smartphone, but it's so stupid. It sucks us in to social media. I have to do social media for the show, for you, for my clients. But at the end of the day, and most people know this, my phone's off by 8 o'clock. I have it on Do Not Disturb because I don't want to be disturbed by social media notifications. We need downtime with our families. We need downtime to connect with one another. And we need downtime to reflect, restore the soul, restore the spirit, and to connect in our faith. That's what we really need. We don't need to be checking in 24/7. And in fact, I love it. My phone finally did its Do Not Disturb because I scheduled it to, but it's scheduled a half hour too late. Not so smart, huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. It is about 9:23 a.m. Eastern Time. It is Friday, December the 2nd. And I also wanted to remind you, we did a lot of giving back on the show this week. And I want to encourage you to do your checks and balances when it comes to giving to organizations. We started off the week with Color Us United president talking about the Salvation Army. We all are lovers of the Salvation Army. It's been around for years. It's founded on Christ. It's founded on the Bible. It's founded on giving back to the homeless. But unfortunately, the head people of Salvation Army decided they were going to start teaching diversity, equity, inclusion, and that they were saying that America is racist. So, as you noticed, and the people and the organizations I brought to the table this week, both national and local, I went through, and a lot of them I already know personally. And I know how they believe. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought them to the show. But my concern is oneness. If the salvation is so determined to divert itself from the gospel of Christ, should we be working and supporting the Salvation Army? First question. I'm also challenging those who are in the conservative space who still work with the Salvation Army. Does our local chapter support this diversion from biblical truth and helping the least of these? Because helping the least of these does not color block or color code. Helping the least of these is helping the least of these. So I want you in the Eastern North Carolina area, the North Carolina area, double check on the Salvation Army in this area, because at the national level, that's what they're pushing. Volunteers, donors, and employees are fighting this tooth and nail. Also, I want you to consider supporting all these organizations I've brought to the table this week in the season of giving back. Not taking, giving back. Bowery Mission, Bowery.org. You heard it yesterday, and you heard it 2 weeks ago before Thanksgiving. They're doing a coat drive with the new museum. They need coats, gently worn or brand new coats, larger specifically. If you are wanting to send a coat to the Bowery Mission, send it to 227 Bowery, or just go to Bowery.org if you want to place a donation specifically to clothing or the coat drive. Also yesterday, we had the Coastal Carolina Women's Ministries, and you heard the ministry that they have to our military spouses, our veteran spouses, our spouse community. They are all run on private donations, just like the Bowery Mission. Consider supporting them. If you are here in Eastern North Carolina, consider giving back to them. We have had a phenomenal week here at Common Sense America, and we are going to hit some pretty heavy issues. I prayed over this, and I had a lot of people pray over this. This segment, it's just ridiculous. But what are we going to do about it? And I told you guys at the very beginning, put your big girl pants on and put your big boy pants on, because we got a heavy conversation to talk about. TikTok, Kim Kardashian, the fashion industry, sex slavery, human trafficking, situational awareness, our taxpayer dollars supporting all of this. We are bringing over to the show, who I'm so glad to have, who accepted the invite to return to Common Sense America, Brian Searcy. He's a retired United States Air Force colonel, and he is the author of The Real World book. And I'm sure it's a perfect stocking stuffer, but it's something we need to be putting in our schools, in front of members of Congress, in front of our local and state officials. We're going to bring over Brian Searcy. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming back to Common Sense America. It's so nice to see you. And I just absolutely thank you for what you are doing. Love getting your emails. Thank you for raising the flag on everything that's happening. But I want to get right to it. I made my audience well aware I was not going to be too nice today in regards to this subject, because, I'm like a bat out of hell. Let's fight this. Let's fight this hard. It's disgusting. It's vile. And, listening to, I shared with them earlier, I listen to Megyn Kelly's podcast daily on my mental health walk. I know that almost sounds like contradictory, but in the end, it really does educate me on what is happening. And she just hit it hard. Kim Kardashian, what is happening with the fashion industry, what is happening with our children in sex slavery, why at Christmas time it is filthy, disgusting what Nordstrom's is doing. So let's talk about the breakdown of what you have seen, and what is your perspective on what broke earlier this week. And first of all, what's your perspective? And then second, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I will be honest, until you sent me a note, that's not one of the things that I pay close attention to.
Okay.
And then I saw it on Fox News. So then I started to realize what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I'm actually a little bit encouraged.
Okay.
Right? So obviously what happened is terrible. And the fact that people thought that they could do that is terrible. And how we've gotten to that point that people think that they can do that is terrible, and we need to work on fixing that. But what we're hearing, you talked about Megan on her podcast, you talked about what we're seeing with Kim Kardashian. She's speaking out against it. We've had a lot of other celebrities that have spoke out against it. The news is coming out against it. The fact that people are now at least have the willingness to call something that's bad,
right,
I think is encouraging. And
okay,
but what we need to do is continue to educate the parents and the people in our country about how did we get here and how do we fix it. Let's stop talking about the symptoms, because this really is an indication of a lot of the symptoms that are going on in our country today, and we're still not really addressing the problem.
right.
And that's what we need to focus on. So if we can take that encouragement, and then folks like yourself and me and others that really want to solve the problem, we go out and we work on solving the problem. That's what's going to be even more encouraging if we can do that.
One thing that really is disturbing to me is the celebrity name that comes to mind. Obviously, Kim Kardashian, billion-dollar name. But you know how long it took her to finally come out with a statement? And so, it's always about following the money trail. Who's holding the money over me for me to say something or not say something? Mom of 4 or 5 kids, and she couldn't say something for about 6 days, which is sickening. I agree with you to the point that people are talking about it, but why did we even have to get to this point to start talking about it? Because you and I both know this has been going on for a long time. And I'll cite a story to you. When I lived in New York City years ago, I was working for the Bowery Mission, and I lived on the Upper East Side. I lived in a walk up, and I would go down to the nail salon on the weekends, and a congresswoman, I will not say her name, Democrat, very specific. She, quote, stands up and protects sex slavery and human trafficking. But I realized quickly that the nail salon that I was going in was just that. That's what they were doing. And I looked at, and I was sitting next to her because I just happened to notice it when we were sitting there getting our nails done. And I looked over and I started talking with her, and she knew my congressional background. And I said, "Do you see what's going on?" And she continued to go in there and watch it happen right in front of her. I did not. But my point in saying that is that was 10, 15 years ago. And this has been going on so long, but why did it have to get to this point? And let me put focus on your book for a second. You talk about situational awareness. You talk about coaching and teaching, and you even have talked about situational awareness even in our neighborhoods. But why does it have to come to this point? Where was the breaking point here, do you think?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack right there. The first thing I'd talk about, or I would mention about her waiting 6 days. I don't know what the right amount of time is, and that probably is too much time, but I do actually give her credit because I think this is something that people do all too often, whether they're politicians or celebrities, is they open their mouth without thinking. One of the things that we talk about with situational awareness and the practicing of the 10 critical skills that are in the book and that are in our program is to take emotion out of the conversation. Give yourself time to think and understand different perspectives before you actually speak. So I give her a little bit of kudos for not just flying off the handle. The cynic in me believes a lot like you that there's a lot more behind why she took 6 days.
Yeah.
But for the people that are listening, take that as a positive, that don't just jump off the handle without having all of the information. She said she wanted to talk to him. She wanted to get all the information before she said something. So I think that is a positive that I think the people that are listening today can take away. To get into your next point, this problem has been going on for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's in our educational system. It started out in our elementary schools and the middle schools and the high schools. Now it's in our universities. And unfortunately now, because those people have been indoctrinated as they've gone through that, they're in our businesses.
Right.
But I had a great conversation with William Wallace the other night on his show. And we talked about how we talked about how there's 10 to 15% on the left that are the far left and 10 to 15% on the far right, which means we've got about 70% of the people in our country that are in the middle that think the way that we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
they are outraged at what they see. The problem is we've gotten to a point where we expect somebody else to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we expect other people to solve the problem is because nobody has empowered us
Mm-hmm.
with the tools to be able to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big focus of our program. I wrote the book, Prepare for the Real World,
Yep.
a year ago. I never in my wildest dreams expected that a year after that book came out that it would be what's going on in the world today would be so much worse than it was a year ago.
Yes. Yes.
So our focus at the Paratus Group and with our programs is to empower parents and our youth with situational awareness so they can start to take responsibility for their own safety.
Mm-hmm.
Our program is the first responder program because at the Paratus Group, we believe that we are all the first responders.
Mm-hmm.
The police, the fire, the EMTs, they're the emergency responders.
Mm-hmm.
You saw my email just the other day where I talked about the fact that, emergency responders are responders. They're not preventers.
Right.
They supposedly law enforcement is supposed to prevent bad things from happening, but because of what's going on in our society today, because people don't feel threatened by the police, they don't think that that's anything that's going to stop them. They will do whatever they want.
Right.
So that's why it's important for all of us to learn this critical skill,
Yeah.
be aware of all the threats that are out there, and then work together as a community and want to take responsibility back for the safety of what's going on in our culture and our society and what's going on with our kids. And that's a big part. The human trafficking piece is a big part about what we talk about because the way that we're going to solve the human trafficking problem isn't to catch the predators. There's more and more of them every single day.
Yeah.
We've
They're
got to
turning them out
empower.
like that.
Yeah, I read an article just the other day from a law enforcement agency that said there's 500,000 predators online every single day trying to get to our kids, trying to get them into the human trafficking arena. So the way that we solve this problem is by empowering families to keep their kids from becoming victims.
Let me ask you this, empowering families. So say that these kids are being raised in a single parent home and that single parent is working 3 jobs just to, keep that food on the table, gas in that gas tank. So what do we do about that? How can that single parent be more preventative in that case?
Well, it boils down to what I talk about in our programs. When you have situational awareness and you learn how to, as a leader and as a parent, look for those learning opportunities, and then you actively do something when you see that, that's how you make a difference. Whether you're a single parent, whether you're 2 parents, and there are plenty of 2-parent families out there where those 2 parents are so busy with what they're doing, they're not paying attention to their kids, right?
It's true.
It's a mindset, it's habits and behaviors, and it's taking an active role in their life. It's having that empathy and wanting to take that active role in their life is how the parents make a difference. I talk about with parents today, what we see is they basically parent based on their stress level, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
they're not going to do anything with the behavior that their kids have until it gets to a level that they are now being bothered. So now what they're going to do is they're going to punish their kid and try and change that kid's behavior. Well, now that's too late. They've allowed that behavior to go on.
Right.
My wife and I were coming back from our first only husband and wife vacation that we took since the beginning of the pandemic. And we're sitting in the airplane as everybody's boarding, and there's a family with a husband, a wife, and about a 4 or 5-year-old. And we looked at each other and said, because they weren't sitting in the same row, the wife was actually in a row behind. We said, well, I guess they flipped a coin to see who was going to sit with their son.
Yeah.
And I watched as everybody boarded the plane that this dad just let this boy do whatever he wanted. He was playing with the tray table. He was not behaving very well.
Right.
And then it got to a point where they closed the door. Everybody had to sit down in their seatbelt. And I wish I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. The dad then felt he couldn't understand why he couldn't get his son to sit down in the seat with a seatbelt on after allowing that behavior to go on.
Right.
So in our program, we talk about developing those habits and those behaviors. So you look for those learning opportunities. So when they start to do something that is not the right behavior that you want, you steer them to that behavior that you do want.
Right.
But it takes situational awareness. It takes being perceptive. It takes that understanding. It takes understanding and figuring out what their perspective is while they're going through that,
Right.
and then being able to do something about it. So as parents, we have to, if we take on that responsibility, just like if you lead a company,
Yeah.
there are certain responsibilities that go along with that.
Yes, there are.
Parents today, and I've read a couple of great books on this, believe that they want their kids to be their friends. When I grew up, that's not what my parents wanted. My parents, and
No way.
I don't like the word discipline either. I don't think that you really discipline your kids. What you do, if you're truly being a parent and you're using situational awareness and the 10 critical personal skills that we talk about, what you're doing is you're guiding your kids to the habits and behaviors that are going to make them successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also need to understand that. So my wife and I, we have 5 kids. We're a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of those 5 kids are the same, which means
Right.
that we have to parent each one of those 5 kids differently,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some need more attention than others in certain areas, but that's where we have to use our situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be perceptive. We have to understand their perspectives, and then we have to figure out how to communicate to them,
Right.
so that they can develop the habits and behaviors that are going to make them successful.
Have you been able to take your book and the programs that you're putting together, the first responder program, have you been able to implement it in the local schools? Have you been able to get it in front of the school boards to take a more active role on that battleground as well? Or is it, or are you getting pushback from school boards and superintendents' offices? What are their responses to you doing this? Because in all actuality, that is where they are being formed and developed, even aside from 2 parents, 1 parent, no parent.
For a few years, for a couple years, I was working hard to get into the larger school districts with this program.
Yeah.
To educate the teachers and the staff on situational awareness, because situational awareness is how you make the school district more safe. It's not by having technology and hardening and active shooter drills.
Right.
It's through the establishment of habits and behaviors. Now, a lot of times they don't want to bring in our program because our program isn't a 45-minute talk that somebody gets and then that's done, because that's what we've been doing for years. And every single threat that we face in our community continually gets worse because we have that traditional type training.
Right.
And then I'm not sure they want to solve the problem, right? There are a lot of school districts that we are in where there are superintendents and leaders in those communities that truly want to solve the problem.
Right.
So what we're doing at the Paratus Group is partnering more with organizations that go directly to businesses and parents in the home. So those parents learn and develop this skill so they can then translate that skill to their kids. And this is not something that we're going to fix in, like I said, a 1-hour lecture. It's going to take us 5 to 10 years to grow the next generation of college students that have this skill. The Harvard Business Review came out and said less than 1 in 7 people today actually has situational awareness.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
Our focus is 10 years from now that number is 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7. We've got to go back to how it was when I was a kid, where, parents are supposed to teach this to their kids, not schools.
Exactly.
Not businesses, parents. So, and here's the thing. We talked earlier about the difference between symptoms and problems.
Yeah.
We talk about all the time about how millennials and Generation Z are potentially lazy or these types of things, or that parents aren't doing a good job parenting, and that may be true. But why is it true? And at the Paratus Group, and what I firmly believe, it's because they don't have the skills and the tools to effectively do that good job of parenting. And if you don't have a skill, if you don't understand situational awareness, if you don't have a process, if you don't consistently practice your 10 critical personal skills, how are you going to teach that to your kids? Right. As a leader, when I would do coaching to other leaders, I have 13 leadership tenets that I've actually written down that I practice on a regular basis. And as a leader, I communicate that to people. So I would ask leaders, so what are your leadership tenets? What are the things that you actively practice? And you have those written down? And I would get, stares. They had no idea what I was talking about. And that goes along the same line. If you don't have the skills and know what you're going to impart to somebody else, then there's no way that you can do that. So that's why it's so important to empower parents with the necessary skills so they can actually share it with their kids.
With you being a retired Air Force colonel and knowing what the veteran community can do and be to the next generation, if you will, is it in our best interest across the board to really kind of recruit our veterans to be at the forefront, teaching this, being a part of this? You going to Congress, to the newly elected Congress people, and talking to the combat veterans who will get this more so than others. It is, with us being here in Eastern North Carolina, we have 9,000 veterans plus military. And so is it in our best interest to say, you know what, let's recruit veterans to really lead this, because they're going to get it, and then their kids, and then their kids. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just wrote that down, and I think I'm going to work directly with you to start doing that.
Oh, okay.
I have right now a lot of my colleagues that are in the military are doing a lot of great things that are out there, but very few of them are doing what I'm doing. A lot of them are dealing with the right side of the bang. How do you actually respond to an active shooter, or how do you rescue kids that are human trafficked? How do you deal with people that are potentially getting ready to commit suicide?
Yep.
That's all the right of bang. You've seen in my emails and in our content that I have a logo that talks about left of bang, and left of bang is the prevention. And that's what we focus on at the Paratus Group, is empowering people. How do you prevent these things from happening? And I do want to tell everybody that's listening that I am not the creator of left of bang. Major Patrick Van Horn, Marine Corps major, wrote a book called Left of Bang. And he wrote that book because he was asked by the Marine Corps to develop a program to keep Marines from being killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, because in the military, we're trained how to come in contact with the enemy.
Yes.
They were not trained how to look for ambushes and IEDs. So they trained the Marines to pay attention to what normal is, so that if you get that hair on the back of the neck or that gut feeling, something isn't right, and then you take action on it. You overcome the normalcy bias, and you keep yourself safe left of bang. That's what we're focusing on at the Paratus Group. And one of the things that we're having to deal with and overcome in our communities is the fact that parents oftentimes don't think that there's anything wrong. They don't think that the communities are not safe. They don't think that there are threats to their kids.
Right.
And when I talk about the devices that our kids have, I've had parents come up to me afterwards and say that, because I ask them if they check the content that their kids are looking at on their phones and on their gaming systems, and they'll say, no, I follow, and these are my words, they follow the Ronald Reagan, or they don't follow the Ronald Reagan philosophy of trust but verify. They just trust their kids. So I've numerous times asked parents, do me a favor and go look at what your kids are looking at on their phones and on their devices, and get back to me in a couple of days and let me know if you're okay with what they're looking at. And most of the time when I get a response back, it's because they could not believe what their kids were looking at on their devices.
Well, I mean, I was just complaining about the smartphone. It's not smart. Excuse me. And talk to me about TikTok.
Right. Yeah. So if you watch the news, at least the news that's talking about this, TikTok is a Chinese-owned company, and they are collecting data on everybody that has TikTok on their phone. That data can be used to target people. That data can be used to figure out if they want to interfere with election and those types of things. It gives them the power to be able to do that. We've had the director of the FBI come out and say that it's a national security concern. The Governor Noem has actually said that all government agencies and employees cannot have it on their phones. We've got congressmen and senators are starting to talk about it. But it's an indicator, and it's not, to be honest, it's not just TikTok. There's SEO and a whole host of other things. And everybody that's listening and watching today, have you ever gotten on Facebook, or you've gone and you've done some shopping on Google or Amazon, and then you get on Facebook, and lo and behold, what pops up is an ad for exactly what you were looking at just 5 minutes ago, right? So they are using our data. They're looking at what we look at, And the concern is, can they weaponize that?
Yeah.
We can't be naive to think that there aren't people out there that will weaponize it. And TikTok with China is a perfect example of
Exactly.
that.
I was just going to say the China thing.
So in my post just yesterday, I recommended, if you have it on your phone, if your kids have it on your phone, you delete it. They're even saying so much that if you had it on your phone, you should actually get a new phone, because they're not convinced that just removing it from your phone
Yeah.
will actually solve the problem. And it's a big issue. But it goes back to what I talked about a few minutes ago, is that people just ignore these types of things. They don't think that there are issues that are out there, and that's what we have to overcome. And I've had some people come to tell me and say that I'm selling fear. I'm actually trying not to sell fear. What I talk about is that preparation overcomes fear.
Right.
Those people that are prepared, that look like they know what's going on around them, are the least likely person to be a victim. It's the person that has no clue what's going on around them that is the one that is likely to be a victim.
Yes, no, I completely agree. I apologize to those who are watching. My throat was so dry, and I usually never drink coffee in front of anybody, so I apologize. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for joining me in coffee this morning. The winter weather is definitely affecting my allergies. So thank you. Let me, on a final note, we are about to wrap for the day for Friday, December the 2nd. And I just want to highlight two more things with you as we think about what's ahead for 2023. And we think about Super Bowl. We think about getting our kids ready for that. And just this morning, I was talking to a mom in our neighborhood, and she's the mom of 3 boys. She is a Naval Academy mom, and she is a Naval Academy wife, and traveled, lived, settled here. And she said, Eden, she said, when I send my boys into a certain store, I want to know that they're okay, but I do worry. So what are a couple things that we think about, one, as we head into 2023 in the Super Bowl? If you want to just educate my audience on the awareness of what happens at the Super Bowl yearly. And then also, finally, just a couple tips from your book, which I held up earlier at the beginning of the show for people to pick up. And I will share this link when I post the show as well. What are just a couple tips we can give parents to get through the holiday season? And are there situational awareness pieces that we need to be aware of as we are headed into the Christmas season?
So bringing up the Super Bowl, it's the largest human trafficking event that ever takes place in the world.
Right.
So being aware of that is the first step, right? That's why in our program, when people talk about situational awareness today, most of the time they talk about active shooter. And to be fair, that's how I got into this area. But in 2019, I realized that all the threats that we face today can be prevented when people have situational awareness. And what needs to be done is you need to establish the habits, the behaviors, and the mindset, and practice a process, something that you do all the time, everywhere that you go. So like I mentioned with Left of Bang and Major Patrick Van Horn, you learn what normal is. And then when you know what normal is, you get that hair on the back of the neck or that gut feeling. One of the key inputs that we have in every presentation that I ever give is that whenever you get that, you have to trust it. It means that something is there that isn't right. You can't ignore it. You can't allow normalcy bias to rationalize it away. You have to do something about it. So you change where you're going. You actually spend time to analyze, is it really a problem? If you can figure out it's not a problem, then you can continue. But for me, I would much rather act on it when something like that happens. And if I have to change what I'm going to do, that's okay. I'll never know if I kept myself from being a victim or not, or kept my family from being a victim, but I'm okay with that. I would much rather trust it and not have that chance that I put myself where myself or my family or somebody else, because that's the other thing that I do. And one of the things that we talk about, if you have the skills, if you have the ability, don't just worry about your own safety and the safety of your family. I'm paying attention to, women and families in parking lots. So I'm looking to see if anybody is stalking them or looking to do some harm to them. So I'm consistently not just, looking to take care of my own safety, but the safety of others. And when you get to that level, that's how we're really going to make a difference. So what I would say to the parents that are out there is, you need to learn and develop the habits and behaviors that go along with situational awareness. And it's not something, then those don't just magically happen because you listen to me for 15 minutes or 45 minutes. It takes 90 days to establish new behaviors. That's why our program starts out with a 90-day micro e-learning platform. So people practice the process that we've adapted from the military. And that process is identify, assess, predict, decide, and act. So that's one of the key things that you need to do, is have that process, and then you practice it. You learn what normal is. And then one of the things that we find from the people that go through our program is that they'll say, well, I don't know if I really need this. I never notice anything that's going on out there. As soon as they take our program, they start to practice their process. Then they start to see all of the things that are actually going on around them. And they realize, now I've got to start paying attention to this stuff.
Yes, no, that's exactly it. There was one other thing I was going to mention to you. You may not be able to answer it just because of the location differences, but I was watching the reports about the New York City subway, and people those who live there. And I was one of those people, used to take the subway all the time. And now, those are the young professionals who are afraid to take the subway in fear of being pushed over and losing their life. So what do you say to people who are situationally aware but live in that kind of environment? What is it for them to be able to truck through that environment, feel safe, also knowing what is happening in and around them? I mean, that's a really difficult question, but what are your simple thoughts on that?
Well, real quick, if you, and I don't want to sound judgmental or negative, but if you do pay attention to the people that have been punched or pushed or those types of things, when you look at them on the videos, they do not have situational awareness. They have no idea what's going on around them. So they have become that easy target. So if you are on the subway, if you're taking the train, if you're walking to the grocery store, get off your phone, pay attention, learn the process that the Paratus Group has, which is that identify, know what's going on around you, and then do an assessment, and don't put yourself in a situation where you could be that victim. So don't stand a foot away from the ledge at the platform where you can easily be pushed. Put yourself in a position where you can see people coming up to you. One of the things that, my kids have learned over the years about me is I walk into, no matter where it is, and I do that. I stop, look, and listen. Is there anything in here that concerns me today? So I'm identifying, is there anything that sets off the hair on the back of my neck? If there's not, then I do an assessment. Can I sit somewhere so my back is not to the door so that I can see the exits? So I put myself and my family in a position where it's going to be very, very difficult for somebody to make us victims. And then I also set us up to be able to deal with something if it happens. The more people that actually practice the process and do those types of things, that's how we're going to make a difference. And then I'll go back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago. If everybody learns this skill, and they're not just looking out for themselves, but they're looking out for other people around them. So if I'm on that subway platform and I'm practicing my situational awareness, and I see this person that doesn't have situational awareness, and I see another person walking up to that person, that's when I can take action and make a difference. And that's how we're going to stop this stuff from happening. It's not the police's responsibility. They can't be everywhere.
No, they can't. No, they can't.
They're overworked and overtasked and undervalued today.
Exactly.
So if we want to make a difference, we have to do something about it.
And that was my final question, and we're at the top of the hour, but I have to ask you one final question. I do a lot of walking and a lot of working out, and I wear earbuds, but I'm very situationally aware of what's going on around me. I don't have my volume up high enough that I can't hear something coming up behind me, to my right, to my left. And, I say to all of those out there, if you're not a military spouse, and if you're not a veteran spouse, then you may not be aware of those situations. Thankfully, I have a husband who has trained me similar to what you were doing, and your book resonates with me because it's everything he has trained me since we got married, and I'm grateful for that. But what do you say to people who are out working out and they have their earbuds in and they're so focused on the workout, running down the highway, What do you say to people with that? Don't wear them. What are your recommendations altogether with the earbuds?
Well, to your point, you do certain things when you have your earbuds in
Yeah.
that allows you to maintain that situational awareness.
Yeah.
You know, we teach Lieutenant Colonel Cooper's colors on situational awareness, and the yellow color is where you've done that initial piece, where
Mm-hmm.
you've stopped, looked, and listened, and you've done the first steps of our process. So if you're out working out and you know what normal is around you,
Mm-hmm.
and during your workout or your run, your head is still looking around, you're still paying attention to what's going on.
Right.
If something is introduced, that God-given gift of the hair on the back of the neck, or that gut feeling, that fight or
Mhm.
flight is going to happen,
Right.
but you have to be able to recognize it and train yourself to recognize it and then do something about it
Mhm.
when that happens,
Right.
and know what you're going to do.
Right.
It's the people that don't understand that. It's the people that aren't paying attention at all, that are just totally focused on their workout. But more importantly, they haven't thought about what they would do if something happens while they're
Right.
doing their workout or their run. You know, if somebody is walking up to them and it sets off that hair on the back of the neck, what
Yeah.
would they do?
Yeah.
Most people have no idea what they would do because they've never thought about it. So in a situation like that, they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about that preparation, and that's the preparation is what overcomes the fear and keeps you safe.
Yeah. One thing I do when I go on my runs or my walks is I put my location on my husband's phone. So I'm sharing my location with him wherever I'm at. And so if for some reason I'm not back at a normal time, he knows how to track me on that location. And so just another tip for, the women out there who want to do a good workout but want to be very conscientious of where they are. Brian Searcy, Colonel, retired United States Air Force. I am just thankful for you to return here to Common Sense America. I would like to have you back as we hit Super Bowl and just making people aware, your first responders program, what you have ahead, and just educating the parents of this show. I was sharing earlier that my audience is primarily women. And so you are a great source to have on the show, educating the parents, the single woman, the working woman, all of the above. So thank you so much for being here. Merry Christmas to you and your family. And thank you for what you are doing.
Well, thank you for having me on, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And for all of those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. Make sure you go to my YouTube channel at Common Sense America with Eden Hill. You can see all the live episodes and then all of my special episodes and episode clips. I hope that you will tune in there. Join us back here on Monday, December the 5th. Like I told you, Young Voices will be back. We are going to be talking with Gabriella Hoffman. She actually got to hear Vice President Mike Pence speak yesterday at a big conference in Washington, D.C. So we're going to be talking kitchen table topics with her, breaking down what is happening in D.C., lame duck session, and also commercial fishing, and also our 1099s and those who are independent consultants and what is ahead in 2023 under the Biden administration. You don't want to miss this. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. Have a wonderful holiday weekend with all of the holiday events going on. Be strong, be courageous, and be aware of what is around you. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.